a different day up here today. Last video you saw had frost, snow. Now it's completely different, and all in just one day. The winds are a bit stronger. In fact, we're expecting 60-70 miles an hour winds tonight, but it definitely is much milder. Currently around about 10 degrees. Just goes to show you, as gardeners, we can do most things. The weather, we're rather reliant on the sky up there. In today's video, I want to talk to you about what I regard something that should be your number one priority. Hello and welcome back to the New Dig Norfolk Gardener. When you look around the garden, you often forget that we're now in our 4th year of no dig. Time just goes by. Although myself and Mrs. W have been gardening for many years now, we don't always stop to think about what's important. But actually being no dig, it's done just that. I have looked around and I've looked at the wonderful, amazing crops that we have and the harvest that we get. And for me it all comes back to the same thing, your soil. Good soil health. For me, good soil health actually promotes really strong growth. Our plants are nice and large, and things like the purple sprouting broccoli and the sprouts, they need to be really strong crops that have grown well, because they're having to face all of these weather conditions that we're having now. Frost and snow all last week. All of a sudden mild weather, but very windy, stormy weather to come for the next few days. And without that strength, without getting all the nutrients from your soil, your plants simply can't stand up to that. Now, I'm no scientist by any stretch of the matter, but just looking on the internet, I can see that our soils are made up of minerals and organic matter, air, water and living organisms. You think soil really has to provide something for your plants to root into, and it needs to have plenty of food so that your plants can grow. The other thing that strikes me even more these days, given the nature of our weather and how climate change is affecting us, our soils have an ability to be able to store carbon, so it also plays a really important role in climate change. When I think about, the things that we're trying to do to stop this climate change, I received a comment from Belinda, who said she was speaking to, I think a nursery lady she was speaking to, who had said to her that actually we can still use peat in compost in 2024. That's been put back. I said to Mrs. W, I said, I haven't heard anything about this. And indeed I hadn't. But actually, if you go on the DEFRA website, it's been put back to 2030. Peat also stores huge amounts of carbon, and every time it's dug up, it's releasing all that carbon into the atmosphere. So for me, that's a bit of a tragedy that we're not banning peat in our composts. But what I would say is that there are peat-free composts out there. And if you want to do your bit to be able to make, hopefully, the world a better place for your children and your grandchildren, because our grandchildren are still only, our eldest one is only 8. Use the peat-free compost. The more of us that use the peat-free compost and not relying on compost that's got peat in it, they'll start to produce more of it. And hopefully, and I'll put a link down in the description so you can see the video that we made earlier in the month, Sow With Us. You'll know if you've watched it, we are doing compost trials, peat-free compost trials, to see how each of these composts react. So hopefully that will give you a steer towards a really good compost to use. Soil plays a vital role in the well-being of not only human beings, but animals, and of course, as we mentioned earlier, the planet. When crops are harvested, the food from the soil is removed. And of course, if they're not replaced, then your soil health will get worse. As you know, we use the no dig method, and we cover our soil with compost. In this case, it's our homemade compost. You could have, of course, used animal manure, as long as it's well rotted. And you could use green waste compost, they work just as well. And this that you see here, this was up here in the autumn. What tends to happen is that the soil organisms, such as worms, they come to the surface and they feed on this. And as they digest it, they make lovely, rich soil, which has lots of nutrients that are available to your plants. Another thing that I have noticed also is by using the no dig method and covering our soil surface with compost, we don't see such a decline in our topsoil. You can probably hear the wind on my microphone today. The wind tends to blow this way across our garden. And it really can get really quite windy, can't it, Mrs. W?
Yes, yeah.
And, you know, it will blow the soil, your topsoil away, and you start to lose that depth of topsoil. The other thing that I really like about no dig is that it protects the fungal networks. And these are really valuable to you. It's a network that runs through your soil. And they make food available to your plants. It's like a relationship that they have with each other. But along their networks, they then make the nutrients and water available to those plants that you're growing. And that's why very often you do get bigger harvests, better plants, because more is available to those plants. Now, we don't have a large enough space to be able to do some side-by-side trials really to show you the difference, but certainly the man Charles Dowding, if you watch his video, he actually every year does a side-by-side trial of dig and no dig, and his results show year on year the no dig method produces bigger harvests, and that results from stronger plants. And of course, it's just as important to keep good soil health in your undercover structures too. And no dig can help with that. You know, when I think about things, and I go all the way back to being an 8-year-old boy in my dear old dad's garden. There are actually pictures of me in the photo album, and he's getting me to put horse manure on the beds. He wasn't so far away. He said, "We'll leave that on the surface there, boy."
Good old Norfolk accent.
But where he did go wrong was that the following spring, he then turned that over and digged that in. I think if it had still been around today, it would have really embraced the no dig culture and the things that we're doing. That much I'm pretty sure of. Do let us know in the comments your thoughts on soil health. Are you aligned with us or not? Whichever way. Have a great gardening week. We shall see you on the next one.